Hello and welcome to our R Programming for Beginners series. Let's learn something about creating vectors because vectors are probably the most used data structure in R. Let's define vectors first. A vector is a sequence of elements of the same type, numeric, string, or logical. So please keep in mind that all the elements of a vector must be of the same type. That's important. And one of the most common ways to create vectors is using the C function. C stands for concatenate. So we simply create a vector by concatenating the components, the elements, because the elements of a vector are also called components. Let's create a new vector x by concatenating four numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They must be separated by commas. As you can notice, I also have spaces here, but the spaces are not necessary, are not required. I only put them to make the code look better. So let's create this vector x, and let's print it to the console. As you can see, we have the vector components here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's get the class and the type of the vector x. The class is numeric and the type is double. So the type of a numeric vector is always double. Okay, now let's create a character vector, a vector y with three components, a, b, and c. As you notice, in the C function we must put the components between double quotes. So let's execute that. And here you have the components of the vector y, a, b, c. The class of y is character, of course, and the type of y is, again, character. Now let's create another vector using the C function, this time a vector of logical values. So we have four values in this vector, true, false, true, false. The vector will be called z. Let's print that to the console. Let's print that, to the console. So here we have the value of the values of the vector. The class of the vector z is logical, and the type is again logical. Now let's see what happens if we try to create a vector with components of different types. As you can see here, in the C function, I have three types of components, of arguments. Two numeric arguments, 1 and 2. Two string arguments, a and b. Two logical arguments, true and false. So I'm creating the vector n. Okay, it was created without problems. Let's see the class of the vector. Oops, it is character. And let's see the type of the vector. It is again character. Now let's print the vector to the console to see what happened. As you can notice, this vector only has character components. So all the components are written between double quotes. 1, 2, a, b, and true, false. So if we try to create a vector with components of different types, all the components of the vector will be string, will be transformed, converted to string, and the vector will be of character type. To get a vector length, that is the number of components in a vector, we use the length function. So for example, the vector x has a length of 5. It has 5 components, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we can use the C function to add values to an existing vector. Let's add the value 100 to the vector x. So here in the C function, you notice that we have the old vector x with 4 components, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the new component 100. and the result will be stored again in the vector x. So we do not create another vector, a new vector. It will be the same vector x. Let's print it to the console. So now the vector x has 6 components, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 100. One more thing, if we nest 2 or more C functions, the result is one vector only, so not 2 or more vectors. For example, here we create a vector W by concatenating a vector formed by the components 1, 2, 3, and a new element, another element, 25. So here we nest 2 C functions, as you can notice. Let's do that, and let's print the vector W. So the elements will be, of course, 1, 2, 3, 25. Here in this line, I nest 3 C functions. So here I concatenate a vector with the components 2, 4, 6, with another vector with the components 10, 12, 14. And store everything in a vector called S. Let's print the vector S. So this vector will have, of course, 6 components, 2, 4, 6, 10, 12, 14. Well, that's all about creating vectors with a C function. Thank you.